For daily ask Reddit. Reddit, what's your anyways, we are married now story? Met a girl online about 20 years ago one summer after college. Found out we live in nearby towns, so decided to get together. Go out on a few dates. Drive by local preschool. Me, hey, that's where I went to preschool. Huh, that's where I went to preschool. That day we find a preschool class photo. There we are 2 feet from each other. A few months later, my dad finds some old footage of a Christmas play our preschool class put on. We are standing right next to each other. My great-grandparents met because my great-grandfather was delivering the newspaper to my great-grandmother's house and her brother, though he was trespassing and tried shooting at him, my great-grandmother felt bad and bought him lunch. They were together for over 75 years and lived a very happy life. In 2nd grade, I was voted class favorite. Why was this ever a thing? Horrible idea for kids' self-esteem, along with a weird fella who I had trouble believing anyone even voted for, because he was quite reserved and bland. In the 5th grade I remember the same guy getting called to the front of the class to write his answer on the board. He was awkward and dressed accordingly. The girl seated behind me very quietly commented MMMM. His booty look like it be eating his pants. Only I heard this, but it was a humorously accurate observation. After 5th grade I never saw him / heard from him again until we were 21. He showed up at my house to purchase a vehicle we had for sale after my dad passed exactly 1 month earlier. I only recognized him after my mom wrote his name on a receipt for purchasing the car. I reminded him of our time as class favorite and my mom made a show of breaking out the yearbooks. Anyways, we are happily married now. So when my wife were dating she got pneumonia and didn't have health insurance. Asked her to elope to get on my insurance and 2 weeks later we are married. I had a cold and went on a date to an Irish pub. I was eating bangers and mash and had the urge to cough. I tried to keep my mouth shut, but just wound up spraying his face with gravy and mashed potatoes through my pursed lips. I was still coughing, so I took a sip of my drink to soothe my throat. It was beer. The bubbles tickled my throat more. I also spit that all over his face. He stared at me in disgusted horror as gravy, mashed potatoes and beer dripped down his face onto his shirt. I laughed and laughed and laughed, making my apologies sound very insincere. Anyways, we are married now. Thank goodness our booth had high backs so only he suffered. I was flying short-haul domestic, 1.5 hour flight. I was sat next to this beautiful woman, and I found myself doing the opposite of what I'd normally do in that situation. I made small talk with her. We chatted for the entire flight, and we both seemed to not want it to end. But end the flight did, and we parted ways without even exchanging numbers. She was a visitor to the country and I expected never to see her again. A few weeks later, I'm boarding an international flight, and there she is, on the plane, about 10 rows in front of me. After taking off, I asked the lady next to her if she'd like to swap seats with me, as I had an empty seat next to mine. She accepted. We spent a 12-hour flight chatting again, this time a lot more deeply. Anyways, one thing led to another, and we got married less than 3 months later. Unfortunately, that's not the end of the story. She passed away less than a year after we were married. But that time we had together was perfect, every last second of it. Edit. Thanks everyone for your kind words. It was around 14 years ago now, so thankfully the pain is no longer raw. Co-worker's boyfriend's brother came up to stay with them. We have to have you out for dinner with him. You have a lot in common. He likes nerdy things too. You're not allowed to date him though. Definitely dated and married him. Co-worker and now brother-in-law broke up around the time we got engaged. He's better without her. I met my husband when I got a new job at a grocery store, and the guy from the deli came up and yelled at me for hanging up on customers when I couldn't figure out the phone transfer process. He was that guy from the deli, and anyway we are married now. I literally dread when anyone calls my work and asks to be transferred. I rarely do it, and I don't think I've ever done it successfully. I give them the right number first and say, and now I'll try to transfer you. Call that number. If I accidentally hang up, pretty sure I hang up every time.